In this video, we are going to describe the subject Analytic and Descriptive Geometry, developed by Elisabeth Alberdi, Irantzu Álvarez, María Isabel Eguía, Mari Jose García, and Aitziber Unzueta. I am Elisabeth Alberdi. The subject, Analytic and Descriptive Geometry, is set out as a self-learning process in which the student is able to relate elementary knowledge of two basic subjects of the engineering, algebra and the graphical expression. The fields included inside geometry are the ones that are common to the descriptive geometry and to the affine geometry. It is expected that the students, once having understood and assimilated the theoretical concepts, are going to be able to solve a set of geometric problems analytically and graphically, being also able to compare results. This work wants to correct the difficulty that many students find to relate concepts of these two subjects. These two subjects are taught in many engineering degrees. In general, the type of classes of both subjects are magistral, practical, and computer classes. And approximately the number of hours dedicated to each one can be seen in the following tables. As it has been said before, the main objective is to try to correct the difficulty that many students find to relate concepts of these two subjects. We started thinking about the relationship between both subjects in order to identify common concepts. The objectives of the subject are the following: to obtain the essential theoretical concepts of geometric to approach possible questions and problems, to go in depth into the knowledge of the subjects analytic geometry and descriptive geometry, to acquire skills to solve questions related to the subject using adequate procedures, and to apply the knowledge about geometry from an interdisciplinary perspective. In the following diagram, we can see the methodology we have followed to define the subject. First of all, we have defined the topics that we want to develop in this course. Then, we have defined the learning activities. And finally, we have created the materials. First of all, we have analyzed the topics of both subjects in order to identify common points. The common lessons form part of the area called descriptive geometry in the subject of graphical expression, and they belong to the area of affine geometry in the subject of algebra. The identified common areas have been the following: representation of elements, position of elements, angles, distances, and symmetries. The common topics developed in this course represent the 25% of all the topics of graphical expression and the 20% of algebra and geometry. The subject is divided into 7 different lessons. The lesson 1 consists in elements of the affine space, definition and representation. Lesson 2, relative positions among elements. 3, orthogonality. 4, distance between elements. 5, symmetries. 6, angles between elements. And 7, application problems. It is a course of 35 hours. Students will learn the theoretical contents with examples of application using methods from the graphical and algebraic point of views. Students will have to dedicate the double of time, 70 hours, to the accomplishment of the exercises and the self-assessment exercises. The subject is designed in the following way. There will be 4 types of materials: study materials that contain the theoretical contents of the subject with application examples, solved exercises with the resolution of several exercises of both subjects, self-assessment exercises with the resolution of practical exercises which could be used by students as self-assessment. In some cases, the solutions will be given, and in other cases, the students will be asked to solve them from the point of view of the descriptive geometry and the affine geometry, and self-assessment questions with a list of theoretical and practical questions, so that the students can study what they have seen in the subject. We will see an example of created material. This is an example of an exercise in which students are asked to obtain the intersection of two planes. The wording of the exercise of the graphical point of view is in green, and in blue the wording of the exercise that has to be solved algebraically. There is also a collection of exercises that the students can solve on their own. And finally, we include some references in which students can find more information. Thank you for your attention.